All right. Aloha kakakiaka and welcome to the 2023 Hawaii Behavioral Health Convention, Harmony in Health, Integrating Minds and Innovating Lives. It's with great excitement that I introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. Lianne Philhower, who will be co-presenting with me today for the CE training on Innovating Psychology, Ethical Considerations for Moving Treatment Outdoors to Promote Harmony and Health. Next slide. Can everybody see? Is everyone comfortable? Okay, good. Take your time. So you might be wondering, what is ecopsychology? Again, I really appreciate all the volunteers making this possible for those who are here virtual with us to be able to get to be here live with us. So I'll just keep going for the sake of time, but ecopsychology conceptualizes humans' health and suffering in the context of the reciprocal, interdependent relationships clients have or lack with the natural environment. And just wanting to start off with an important note that while this is a newer field or like aspect within our field, these concepts are not new. And they're deeply rooted in indigenous cultures, which have historically recognized nature as an integral to healing and the conceptualization of health. Next slide. All right, so what is ecotherapy? We've talked about ecopsychology as a theoretical framework. Today, Dr. Lianne and I are here to think about, well, what is ecotherapy? How can we apply this in our clinical work as providers? So just a moment, sorry. Ecotherapy is an emerging therapeutic modality that is grounded in ecopsychological theory, which enlarges the traditional scope of treatment to include the human-nature relationship. And that is defined by Dr. Hoschbach, who's prominent in our field. Ecotherapy is both the healing and the growth that is nurtured through healthy interaction with the earth. And what I love the most about it is that it is inviting nature to become a partner in this therapeutic process with us. So a little introduction to your presenters today. My name is Dr. Evelyn Friedheim, and I am a certified somatic ecotherapist. I learned the academic foundations of ecopsychology during my doctoral training in the Bay Area under my mentor, Dr. Canner, one of the founders of ecopsychology, and my advisor, Dr. Barrows, both of whom wrote chapters in the book Ecopsychology, Restoring the Earth and Healing the Mind, which we have available in the back. While writing my dissertation proposal on clinical ecopsychology, I pursued somatic ecotherapy certification under the mentorship of Dave Talamo. And I also experienced ecotherapy as a patient. So I enrolled into a 3-year outdoor ecotherapy program and really got to experience it firsthand. And also, while I pursued my clinical training in California, I was born and raised here on Oahu on the windward side, and I'm grateful to have returned home. While I am Kama'aina, my familial roots are Jewish and Swiss. So thank you for letting me introduce myself, and again, welcome Dr. Philhower.
Thank you. Thanks. My background in ecotherapy actually goes back to my childhood when I lived across Kaneohe Bay and would go there every time I was upset with my parents. I think that's where it began, my love for the ocean, my love for land. I was certified only level 2. There's a level 3 certification, which leads to being a certified ecotherapist. That requires an immersion program that I just can't seem to get away for. And it's in California. I was trained with Ariana Cattell. She graciously, Present Mind Institute invited her to come here to do a training for our staff at Present Mind. So we got her here, and then she did our week immersion for level 2 certification, which was wonderful. Although I think she had problems with the heat here. It was fun though. So just in that piece of it, the enjoyment of nature, that in and of itself, I think is healing, to spend time in happiness. We all know that chemically that's really good for our bodies, to be in a happy state. My roots, she's from Okinawa. Thank you. She's from Okinawa. Also, my other great grandmother is from Japan. Yes, they are different. Okinawan and Japanese are different. And so I'm Sansei, so third generation. I grew up, born and raised, grew up here on the windward side. I went to Kalaheo High School. So you can imagine, right, on those days that I played hooky, it would be at the beach, which is Waimanalo Beach. And so I love this side of the land. I've never left it. And that is my background. Thank you. So I'd like you all to think about your connection with the people and the place here, and your own personal roots to the environment, and your connection with the environment. I'd like you to think about your family, how they came here to Hawaii, or how you came here to Hawaii, and what your connection with Hawaii is for a moment, just to get connected and ground ourselves in our own relationship with this side of the island and with Hawaii.
Next slide. So just in the same way that we would do intake with a patient and kind of get to know their history, Dr. Philhower is going to walk us through our preliminary understanding of the history of where we are right now, Waimanalo.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite parts of ecotherapy, is you get to kind of learn about the land that you are going to be at. And what we discovered through our reading is that there's a deep history here in Waimanalo, especially here where we're being trained today. In 1842, John Adams Kuakini Cummins, an Englishman whose mother was a cousin of King Kamehameha I, acquired land in Waimanalo from King Kamehameha III. The Cummins family leased 7,000 acres for his sugar operation, which was big because we want it to be economically established with the rest of the world. In 1853 to 1854, the smallpox epidemic decimated the native home farmers of this land. And in 1855, the land shifted to become cattle pasture and horse breeding ranch. And then in 1875, a reciprocity treaty with the US allowed the sugar industry to prosper. 1877, the Cummins Ranch was converted into commercial sugar plantation. And in 1881, Waimanalo Sugar Company began milling sugarcane as a commercial industry. So we got really connected there economically with the rest of the world. 1893 was the illegal overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. 1917, by executive order, President Woodrow Wilson acquired 1,500 acres of this land, Waimanalo Sugar Company land, and it became the Waimanalo Military Reservation. And then in 1933, the land was renamed Bellows Field, honoring the memory of Franklin Barney Bellows, a World War I second lieutenant. In 1958, it was renamed Bellows Air Force Station because the runway closed and the flying field status was terminated. 1967, military was doing construction and identified artifacts from a village and burial, and notified the Bishop Museum because they had uncovered human remains. The artifacts prove that where we are right now was one of the oldest places of human habitation in the Hawaiian Islands. Currently, this is Bellows Air Force Base, military training area and recreation area for active and retired military and civilian employees of the Department of Defense. How many of you knew this history of this land? This is part of ecotherapy. This is part of what it brings. It's a connection to where you are and a connection with history. Okay.
And along with that, a sensitivity to the trauma and the oppression that is on this land, and is our responsibility if we want to start utilizing the benefits of the land. We owe a deep responsibility to the healing of it and its people. So today we are here, thank you again for that history. Today we are here to think about ethics and how to integrate ecotherapy into our practice from an ethical lens. In late July of 2020, well, I'll just say I have a brain injury, so the notes are very helpful for me. So if it's distracting to watch me read, just you can kind of close your eyes and just really just kind of take in what I'm saying. So just wanting to acknowledge that. So in late July 2020, the APA Ethics Code Task Force proposed online updates to the ethical principles which guide best practice. These revised principles are currently under deliberation by the task force. And the most recently added ethical principle is the recognition of social systems and the natural environment. That's a big moment. We got that on our ethical consideration. Okay, we're making progress. Next slide. So the APA Ethics Task Force proposes that psychologists, and I would say mental health providers in general, but I will be speaking and referring a lot to psychologists today because that's my field, but I believe everything that I'm saying kind of disseminates across providers. It proposes that psychologists understand that people and behavior are influenced by the environment and that we in turn influence these contexts. So therefore, eco-psychology aligns with this proposed principle with the aspiration that providers and our clients nurture a sustainable relationship with the natural environment, fostering an interconnected and reciprocal relationship between humans and nature. So we are expanding the frame, right? And this is exciting. Next slide. So I'm going to invite us to think about, how do you currently nurture a sustainable relationship with the natural environment, yourself and your clients, to foster interconnection? Next slide. We're also inviting you to take a moment and imagine what would it be like to include contact with nature as part of your therapeutic treatment.
So there's, we have to make a distinction here between clinical ecotherapy and what is ecotherapeutic. Because when we bring ecotherapy into our clinical practice, we do have to consider the ethics and our laws with regard to our practice. So this presentation talks about a little bit of both, because I do want to, for you to all consider ecotherapy as a type of therapy that can be provided across the wellness spectrum. Okay, it's just that our system right now, right, we have a wellness continuum. Our system right now pays for services from here on this side. That's where insurance will reimburse you for therapy. And I think that that's where our training, clinical training comes in, right? We've learned to identify some severe symptoms and cognitive challenges, emotional challenges, relational challenges, but that are causing a lot of distress and are causing a lot of dysfunction in life and are considered more along that warmer colored side of the spectrum. Where we get into a gray area with ecotherapy too is offering ecotherapy for the middle, normal people like us who are just fatigued, right? We have a little bit of maybe headache, brain fog, all of those kind of symptoms that we all kind of normalize at this point. And definitely you'd fall into more of an ecotherapy that coaches use, life coaches, on the more optimized side. But even people that are at 9, right? When you're at 9 and you want to excel, you're just like, yeah, how can I get to 9.5? You know, that's how the mentality is at that point. And ecotherapy is one of those areas of therapy that really is beneficial for everyone, because it isn't so like allopathic, where it's reactive to what's already already ailing you. So the role of mental health therapists with ecotherapy is what we're trying to look at, the ethics of that and how to bring it into our practice. But we're probably going to talk a little bit about just ecotherapy in general as well. So I work at Present Mind Institute of Hawaii, and we do offer ecotherapy services. But we have some challenges here. You know, it's an out of pocket, for example. And when we do this, we need to really consider, if a client wants to have this service, how do we maintain confidentiality? Is their therapist going to be present at the ecotherapy function? Those kind of things. All of our ecotherapy services are facilitated by licensed psychologists. So with that hat on, we always need to consider our ethics, even if we're with people who don't have a diagnosis. We also know that insurance will not pay for it, right? So we don't bill, but there's different philosophies on that as well, because it's an emerging field. I've offered it just as an ecotherapeutic offering for our HPA leadership group just recently. And that was a lot of fun. We got to do some meditation and enjoy the beautiful ko'olaus. I can't seem to get away from the ko'olaus. But it was a lot of fun. So we do community offerings every month.
And that was actually where Dr. Lianne and I recognized, hey, we align on ecotherapy. Let's present. So that's just a little nod to anyone in the audience that has something that they might want to present in the future. I encourage you to submit proposals and reach out to your mentors and your colleagues and contribute your wisdom. So thank you again, Dr. Lianne, for sharing about the great contributions from your team at Mind Institute toward making ecotherapy available to our community. We now invite you to consider more specifically, how do you integrate ecotherapy into your clinical practice? So this is just a kind of introduction. So thinking indoors in your waiting room, for example, you might have some nature sounds playing, some water running in the waiting room. Maybe in your office, you intentionally choose an office location that has windows to the outdoors. Or maybe you have some essential oil diffuser with natural elements. Or in my case, having a brain injury and having a service dog, I also integrate my dog Love into the therapeutic process, which I believe is also a part of ecotherapy. Then moving outdoors, this is broadening the therapeutic frame. And this could include having an outdoor seating area for your patients while they're waiting for their appointment. Or maybe you are taking a short walk close to your office. And there's other more specific types of outdoor ecotherapy that might include horticulture, maybe gardening with your patients, equine assisted therapy, utilizing horses as co-facilitators, or more adventure recreation-based therapy. And then also within assessment, we might think about the house tree person and that symbolism and that metaphor that we get to think about from the psyche through that image of the tree, right? And so that's a brief introduction just to get your mind thinking with us. So in these considerations of intentionally changing the frame, we invite you all as ethical providers to consider, what are the unique ethical challenges of conducting therapy outdoors? In Hawaii, confidentiality is an important factor due to proximity. How might you navigate this? Are there any accessibility barriers or ethical issues you foresee affecting your clients with being with the client outdoors? So our presentation today is based on my doctoral dissertation titled Nature as a Co-Therapist. ethical challenges and solutions of psychologists practicing outdoor ecotherapy. Previous ecotherapists have called for developing, we could go back one slide, sorry. Previous ecotherapists have called for developing research-informed guidelines for outdoor treatment. The current lack of a specific ethical framework for outdoor treatment poses threat of unintentional, unethical practices and harmful misconduct. This is the first study aiming to directly and thoroughly understand the ethical considerations faced by licensed psychologists practicing outdoor ecotherapy while adhering to the APA Code of Ethics. And may this presentation spark future engagement and commitment to intentional best practices of outdoor ecotherapy. So this training is going to be based on my research findings from the interviews that I conducted with the 10 licensed psychologists who practice outdoor ecotherapy in diverse clinical contexts with diverse clients across the United States. Next slide. 10 licensed psychologists from Florida to Hawaii participated in extensive interviews for my qualitative research. Each psychologist provided direct contextual accounts for the circumstances that of their outdoor ecotherapy practices. This included a residential outdoor behavioral health program for adolescents, a publicly funded court-ordered program for adolescents providing extended outdoor trips, a provider doing family play therapy outdoors and in the community, a provider having a community clinic for children, a Veterans Administration provider that offered group practices and mindfulness outdoors, and a variety of different private practices, both for children and adults, both individually and in groups. Next slide. These psychologists spoke to the complex challenges they navigate during outdoor ecotherapy while complying with the existing ethical parameters. Their outdoor work marks a tremendous contribution toward making outdoor ecotherapy accessible to the complex and varying needs of clients' cultural identities, mapping the physical, financial, and cultural obstacles faced while providing outdoor ecotherapy, and proving that these concerns are not insurmountable. Next slide. In designing the research and interview, 16 domains of ethical consideration emerged from reviewing the existing ecotherapy literature and from reviewing the ethical APA Code of Conduct. So I took each domain, I asked each psychologist about each domain. What are the challenges that you navigate with confidentiality? What are the challenges that you navigate with this? All right, what are the solutions? What is it that you have done? Maybe you knew somebody else that did it. Maybe in retrospect, you wish you did it. Let's get it all out on the table and I'll analyze all your themes. And then, so I'm presenting that subset of the 10 providers today. These psychologists spoke to the complex challenges they navigated while complying, and I believe that the solutions that they offer today are pioneering for the future of our field. Their outdoor work marks a tremendous contribution to making outdoor ecotherapy accessible to the varying needs of our clients. While this is not enough of a training to suggest that you would be ready to move your treatment outdoors, we do hope that this is an introduction to thinking about that decision from an ethical lens. Good thing I got my slides right here. All right, so in review, each domain I'll be sharing, if you kind of can see here, so I'll be sharing, here's the domain under the category of competence, we have the domain minimum training. We have challenges A, B, and C that emerged from the research, 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10, number of psychologists endorsing that theme that I created. So, I mean, I'm open to feedback on how I labeled my themes, et cetera, et cetera. The great thing is my 400 and something page dissertation is back there. And for every theme that I endorse, I include the direct quote from my participants. So you can take my research and take it to the next level, relabel it, redistribute it. You know, this is about paving a foundation. This is not the end. We might even be inaccurate, like our field has shown us. We're growing and evolving. Okay, so starting with competence, which is our first theme, going back. Okay, thank you so much. So competence, education issues, and specialized training in ecotherapy do come up. While there has been limited focus in traditional psychology curriculum on conducting ecotherapy, there is now certification courses offered, like Dr. Lianne mentioned, and like that I did pursue, where for 10 days I was in nature with other mental health providers. We were applying this work really from an experiential lens. Sorry. I'm gonna have a little water. Okay, so one of the challenges with competence is that there's currently no clear professional definition of what ecotherapy even is. Further, there's no official credentialing or certification to be an ecotherapist. And for some providers, they just don't feel like the training is even available. So here I'm kind of narrating through my results. For solutions, psychologists agreed about the importance of training to ensure safety. It's necessary for eco-psychologists to conduct therapy, to have some medical, outdoor emergency training, even the basic, right? Depending on how far out of the frame you're going, you need to make sure you're within your competence, not just as a psychologist, but now as an outdoor provider. So, respectful integration. This is kind of a subcategory of competence. Next slide. So sorry about my throat. An aspect of competence that the literature is appropriation. Some eco-psychologists employ practices from cultures and traditions foreign to their own, often lacking acknowledgement or appreciation for their origins. The misappropriation of indigenous traditions is an ethical realm focusing on political and cultural sensitivity, cautioning ecotherapists to take measures and show the utmost respect and accountability when integrating indigenous practices. A minority part of the participants, however, did not even consider that this was a challenge and was oblivious to the harm of cultural misappropriation. So we as a field need to recognize that we have a full spectrum of thoughts on this ethical realm, right? And I'm a little sensitive right now because while I was walking here, I heard two Native Hawaiian providers that were just kind of commenting on whoa, where are we? Why is this conference here? And, so I just think it's really important that we don't just come here and just consume, that we really take an ethical and integrous look at ourselves, where we're practicing and how we're moving forward. Okay. So going back to challenges, sorry. I'm slowing down here because I think it's important. You can go and you can read a book about confidentiality. That's a lot easier to access in the literature, but it's harder to get people to talk about social justice in the frame of ecotherapy. It's harder to talk about the context of providing this treatment in Hawaii. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, but I'm saying I'm posing conversation topics for us to be thinking about, right? Okay. Next slide, solutions. So participants advised to remain client-centered. There was a consensus to intentionally pursue relationships and trainings from Indigenous communities. One might even consider to seek permission from a member of an Indigenous community prior to incorporating their practice. Though, even if you get permission from one person, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a permission from the whole entire population of that community. Recommendations for supervision and training were offered to ensure clinicians are not misrepresenting themselves and to really strengthen the understanding of the Indigenous clients and practices. The study's participants encourage clinicians to bring attention to the traditions of your clients' unique heritage and help them to center their culture in their treatment. And by taking the time to explore their history and their own ancestral traditions, this can happen more organically. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to be moving out of competence and we're moving to pre-treatment ethical consideration. So before you even go outside with your patient, You want to be thinking about informed consent, not pushing your agenda. Oh, we should go outside. Really thinking about screening. Where could this be harmful? Think about efficacy. What's the research? How do you navigate payment? What about reciprocity, giving back to nature? So like I said, in my dissertation, there's all of this laid out. We're going to be kind of moving through what we feel like is most pertinent today. But yep. So with informed consent, from the start of treatment, ecotherapists must maintain focus on the needs of their clients in determining the appropriateness of ecotherapy, ensure a client-centric approach. You might not push a nature agenda by waiting for your clients to display their own sincere interest before moving the treatment outdoors, or by gently introducing ecotherapy as an option and then waiting to see if they respond enthusiastically. What I find interesting to highlight is the findings that 3 of the psychologists named that indoor treatment would be inappropriate or uncomfortable for some of our patients. So for them, this would be an important accommodation based on their cultural lens to move the treatment outdoors. Based on biophilia, we as human beings are biologically conditioned to want to join with nature. So in the same way, we don't want to force people to go outside. It's also important for our field to align with those patients that would feel more comfortable outdoors. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Do you mind to talk for a moment?
Okay. So I like my part. So what have been some of your own personal healing experiences in nature? Have you found nature healing? Yeah, most of you. Have you also experienced challenging kind of sensory experiences in nature? Sunburn. Maybe you're hiking and you trip. Right, it's great. Do you have one?
Okay. I've been hiking since 2005, and I hike about twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. And on Sundays, I clear trails for Hawaiian Trail and Mountain Club. I hope some of you go on our website and join us. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And since COVID, we have had an increased membership because people turned to nature because they couldn't contact other people, but through hiking we could, because we could keep our social distance and we were away from each other. And also it's really a great time to talk, because many times you're separated from other people and 2 people are walking together. And I mean, I've had my own therapy through my hiking, and it's wonderful people. And yeah, it's great. Nature is great. And you learn about plants, all kinds of Hawaiian plants. You can identify. There's people there that are experts in plants.
Yes. So Myrtle and I have gone on many hikes together, and you do appreciate walking with someone who knows about the plants. Yeah, and we've even traveled together to Peru, and you learn about the plants there, and where it's sort of similar because we're on the same, the equator. So really interesting.
So we're going to skip the next slide, but I think this got you thinking, right? Like there's some positives of your lived experience and your connection with nature, and there are some challenges that we want to think about intentionally before we move our treatment outdoors with our patients. So before I go into screening, again, I just want to remind you that I'm presenting the data of a subset of 10 psychologists. So this is not necessarily things that represent what I agree with, nor is it representative of what's true and possible, but it's a really great data set for us to begin to think about what these 10 psychologists were thinking about as they considered screening. So if we want to disagree with some of this data, we can. Let's just use this as a starting point to ensure that the clients we invite outdoors would be a good fit for their clinical needs. So 5 of the psychologists said that they upfront would just screen out any clients navigating severe and acute psychiatric diagnosis. Psychologists emphasize following the client's interests, their history and culture around being outdoors. Some would screen along the way and introduce if it would be an option, see if they're receptive. 4 of the psychologists really said we need to assess their physical conditions and make sure that we're aware of the patient's unique needs. Looking at the client's trauma history, their negative associations with outdoors, having those clients with your patients before you go outside, before they're triggered, before they're flooded, right? So you can't know everything, but you can start with a good thorough screening and history. Working with the children, 2 of my providers said, if the child patient had impulsive behaviors, I just wouldn't go outside with them. Well, that's eliminating a lot of our children that need contact with nature, right? And so, it's a starting point, but I think hopefully kids with impulsive behaviors also have access to outdoor ecotherapy. So this is an opportunity for us as a field to think more about how could we do that. And then 2 of my psychologists said, you know what, everybody can go outdoors. I take everybody. I have no screening protocol to say who can and can't. So it kind of depends on where you're aligning your integrity. All right, now we're going to move to, okay, we've decided to go outdoors and we are changing the frame. Next slide. So changing the frame means that instead of being in the office, you're now outdoors. And that decision should be intentional to meet your client's needs. 6 of the psychologists addressed that the fact that aspects of nature could negatively impact the client-clinician relationship. You're going from sitting down, giving my full eye contact and attention, right, to Dr. Lianne. Now we're walking alongside each other. I might fall, right? The relationship has changed. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but we want to think about that. And what is your client's needs? 3 of the psychologists also spoke to the fact that elements of nature could negatively impact your client. They could get bit by a centipede. They could get sunburnt. Things that they wouldn't be consenting to in an indoor frame. They could come across a centipede that they maybe had a traumatic experience with in the past and now they're triggered. We want to have that context, okay? The main solution offered is to discuss these aspects of shifting the frame ahead of time so that if something comes up, it can be something that you've already at least attempted to problem solve. As a facilitator, you want to be integrity with your professionalism and your boundaries of the therapeutic relationship. You want to continue to contain the process while also being relational. And that might require you to have different options for different environmental locations, depending on your client's needs that day. So it might change, right? Next slide. Thank you again to Lisa, who's really helping make this all possible. Confidentiality. 5 of the psychologists noted that there's limited privacy in more populated environments. So you really want to be thinking about that impact of the change of frame. That's your ethical responsibility to maintain confidentiality. Well, how can you do that if you're outdoors? And how can you talk through with your patients potential breaches of confidentiality in advance? So for example, 7 of the psychologists made a concrete plan with their clients about how they would navigate running into something I, as the provider or the patient, knows. 3 of the psychologists highlighted the importance of, while you're walking with a patient, to never disclose the nature of your relationship with the patient in front of others. Like I wouldn't say, I'm Dr. Rose Evelyn, and this is my patient, by the way, right? And other people, when somebody's walking by, you might just kind of have a sign or a signal to tell your patient, like, okay, we're just going to kind of take a moment of mindfulness and let this person walk by, and then we'll return back into the more therapeutic discussion. All right, accessibility. This is something that's, next slide, please. Thank you so much. Consistent with previous ecotherapy literature, my studies participants roundly acknowledged the concern of entry barriers for clients of varying cultural, physical, financial, and psychological aptitudes, which could result in ecotherapy treatments only being accessible to clients who meet specific criteria and unavailable to the rest. However, this is a common misconception. Many participants in my research insisted that these barriers are not unmanageable and that with adequate forethought, we can move forward. So Next slide, please. You can see most participants promoted inclusion by having multiple outdoor options, which I think is amazing. Follow the client's lead on what their preferred route might be and what their preferred pace is. Maybe consider consulting with a third party about where accessible trails are, like our generous participant today. And more research would be great on this area to promote physical accessibility. As you can see from, next slide, as you can see from my most recent presentations on the topic of ecotherapy, my focus is primarily on the ethical lens of social justice, accessibility, and ensuring inclusion for all patients for how they would benefit ecotherapy. So I work a lot in the disability community. And yeah, I'm thinking about how can we make ecotherapy adapted for families with children and parents with disabilities, right? It's like, how can we break all the boundaries of what we think is possible and move forward to meet our patients' needs? Accessibility financially. The financial barrier is a glaring impediment because insurance companies have not consistently guaranteed reimbursement for outdoor treatment. To overcome financial barriers, psychologists in this study bill to insurance when possible, which is not always. Some only billed for part of the treatment because now maybe you can bill for 53 minutes, but now you're really outside for 2.5 hours. So you're just billing for part of your time. Some even did it entirely pro bono. And those working within residential programs really worked to diversify funding sources through donations, scholarships, and grants. But I do believe that this is an aspect that future research could really continue to advocate for. I believe that this should be insured, it should be covered, right? And so I think it's kind of why I did my dissertation to move toward like, hey, this is actually a good practice that should be covered and is really ethical and culturally aligned with the patients we're serving here in Hawaii. Reciprocity. Dr. Canner, the founder of Ecotherapy, explained, Western psychology views the exchange for services through a narrow lens, solely considering the exchange from a client to the clinician for the services rendered. Given that practices of outdoor ecotherapy invite nature, as Dr. Hoschbach explains, to become a partner in the therapeutic process, this use of nature's intrinsic value holds ecotherapy clinicians and clients responsible for preserving nature in exchange for its benefits. In an interview with Dr. Canner, he emphasized to me, I want people to have a sense of responsibility to the earth.
Okay. So Dr. Georgina Cannon wrote a book called The Third Circle Protocol. And it was a very interesting book because instead of talking about the people in a relationship, she talked about the third circle being the relationship itself and how a focus on the relationship can help you to nurture that bond that you have. So I've modified it a little here in that I put you here and nature instead of someone else, but that it is equally applicable here. And I also wanted to read this quote from Carl Jung. He said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Let that sit for a bit. It's important to have a focus on the relationship because when you begin to see how you are part of the development of that connection, you begin to be more mindful in what you do that either improves the relationship or you become aware of what you're doing that is decreasing the quality of that relationship. So part of that process are these questions, how do you think of any relationship you have with another person or with nature? And in this case, we're looking at your relationship with nature. How do I keep this relationship healthy? What did I do today that seemed to improve this relationship? Did my actions enhance and enrich the relationship to the long term? So as you can see, and you can read these questions, it makes you a lot more action oriented when it comes to caring for the relationship that you have. And with ecotherapy, because we're inviting nature as part of the healing process, we also want to be mindful of that relationship that we have with nature.
Right, so let's return our focus back to the new proposed principle, once titled Interrelatedness of People, Systems, and the Environment, which has now been renamed the Recognition of Social Systems and the Natural Environment. The task force document again asserts that psychologists understand that people and behavior are influenced by the environment and that we in turn influence these contexts. This is the first time in any APA ethics code that the environment's role in contributing to treatment was addressed. Participants in the research offered relevant solutions for reciprocity between the patient, client, and the earth. The most considerable consensus was building clients' awareness of their impact on the environment. Additionally, participants suggested to formally display reverence by asking the nature setting itself for permission before venturing into nature. Another suggestion was to focus on the client's interaction with the natural world, to prioritize gratitude, or to show positive regard for some form in the natural environment. One might also educate their clients about leave no trace. Another suggestion was to facilitate community outings designed as conservation projects and community service projects, and encourage our clients to practice reciprocity outside of the treatment as well. So we're not only talking about in the frame of our treatment, but what about homework, right? All right, so I hope that as our clients become more connected with the earth through ecopsychology, they're increasingly compelled to be a steward through reciprocity. Dr. Lianne?
So here are some fun pictures of Present Mind doing some reciprocity back to nature after our ecotherapy activity. And this one is a nature mandala that we just pick up, leaves that have already dropped. We don't start picking flowers or anything. We just take whatever we find. And sometimes it's even, people's leftover bottle caps or those types of things, but it adds color and we create something, for nature for us all to celebrate. This is a beach cleanup day here in Waimanalo Beach. We had done this, I think, in June, and we all got our shirts on. We walked the beach and we picked up trash and we met a lot of people. It was a lot of fun, but we want to show that we love this land, that the land is important for us to keep clean, to be kind to it. Sometimes when we go on a hike, you might just kind of share some of your water with the land and move on, or pick up trash. But it's just to be mindful of what you can give back.
So who has ever been to Lo'ikalo Middle Mini Park in Honolulu? Anybody? All right. I was born near Chinatown, and here we have this Lo'ikalo that is being re-nurtured by the Native Hawaiian community, and my Jewish youth group was invited to come and volunteer and give back and tend to the land and learn how to promote more sustainable interactions with the local Hawaiian agriculture. So what I'm trying to kind of help us to think about it, and was showing us, right? It could be with your ecotherapy practitioner, or it could be helping a client, let's say myself, within my own natural Jewish community, giving back, right? And so just really helping to think about our patients from that whole spectrum of how they can give back. Okay, so we're going to very briefly talk about safety. This is something that, like I said, we in the ecotherapy field believe that you should go and pursue additional training in this, but I'll just name that the final area of safety. It's our psychologist's responsibility to protect our clients from harm. The psychologist in my study stressed that the reality that there are additional and different safety challenges that require ethical deliberation that are not confronted in the office setting. These risks could cause tension to the therapeutic alliance. We do not have a guideline for treatment outdoors in our APA Code of Ethics. And this is an aspect that deserves attention by future researchers and practitioners to ensure both our clients and ourselves as providers are safe and intentionally planned for. So many solutions were offered, the priority being to do your best to choose a safe environment in advance for treatment. Right, so now you can go to the next slide, next slide, next slide. All right, so just gonna kind of do a quick little riff on the future. So new directions for ecotherapy must commit to ensuring the broadening of accessibility outdoor treatment for clients from diverse racial and cultural backgrounds. In eco-psychology that has no place for people of color, that does not deliberately set out to correct the distortions of racism, is an oxymoron. The needs of our multicultural world demand rethought and inclusive orientations for eco-psychologists, as Pavel and Anthony asserted, that provide solutions for healing these deep-seated patterns, incorporating individual and collective transformation, as well as reflection and action. As Dr. Mullen coined in Decolonizing Therapy, as a way of integrating social justice with our practice, we must actively work toward being truly accessible to more people. Future ecotherapy practitioners, they asserted, could collaborate with other therapists who have the same goals, like we in this room here today, provide a richer space for self-reflection, educational discussions, and community organizing, such as this convention. I propose the following questions for us to deepen into moving forward. What are the obligations for eco-psychologists who treat diverse clientele? What are the implications for ecotherapy education coming from a predominant? How can we address the potential biases within training? How can curriculum development prepare clinicians with adequate methods to not misrepresent themselves and to avoid accidental cultural transgressions? A pinnacle goal for ecotherapy remains to develop specific ecotherapy guidelines to serve clients from a variety of needs and diverse cultural backgrounds. I hope that this research has shed light on ways for outdoor ecotherapy to continue in an accountable, respectful, and honorable way to ensure allyship for all people, to give voice to the breadth of ethical issues that have been raised in hopes for sparking future engagement in the intentional ethical practices of outdoor ecotherapy. There is an urgency to address the diverse intersecting aspects of inequity in access to all therapy, including ecotherapy, so that ecotherapists don't continue with practices that exclude. Completing this research and summarizing the outcomes for us today has brought me a great sense of hope for the future, and I hope that it's done the same for you. May this be the beginning of a gathering consensus of ethical best practices of outdoor ecotherapy. We are very grateful for each of your time, and we hope that you'll stay to continue to get connected with us for these important continued conversations. So we're going to go back for a moment, one more forward. So one more back, one more back. All right, so it's really important to give thanks, right? I come up here to share the wisdom that I have acquired, and it came from people who shared this learning with me. So I just want to again give thanks to my mentor, Dave Talamo from Wilderness Reflections, who facilitated my somatic therapy certification training, and to Amy from Earth Spirit Women's Circle, who facilitated the year-long immersion into nature program that I was a part of. I also want to thank my PsyD faculty and mentors, Dr. Canner and Dr. Barros.
Okay, yeah, I thank Ariana Cadell, who from the Earth Body Institute, for expanding my awareness of ecotherapy as well. And I especially thank my colleagues at Present Mind, because without their emphasis on, let's go out there and do it. We bring our ideas and we all make it happen. And that is the exciting part about it.
And then finally, we wanted to acknowledge Holo's Institute, which offers an annual eco-psychology convention in San Rafael. So if you sparked an interest today, you might consider pursuing an eco-psychology journal subscription, or maybe attending a conference, or reaching out and checking out the mobile resource library that we brought. We know that this is just a starting point, but we really hope that you continue to move forward with these topics. So like I mentioned, we have a mobile resource library. I, as an academic, am obsessed with the literature, and I love the way created ecotherapy to be really accessible and enjoyable to read. Maybe you're interested in working with children. You might check out the book, The Last Child in the Woods. Maybe you work from a more somatic frame. You know, there's a great breadth of literature back there for you to peruse during the convention. We're going to keep that table up there throughout the day. So feel free to borrow a book and return it, take a picture and rent it from your library. But yeah, also my dissertation is there for you to check out if you'd like. There's some literature specific to Hawaiian psychology, which really is important if you're moving forward in this, to educate yourself more on that. And also, you know, plants, books about Native Hawaiian plants and animals, you know, you want to, and also I did my doctoral training in the Bay Area. So I also have books back about walking paths in Berkeley and hiking across California. So it's, you know, wherever you are living and practicing, you want to orient yourself to that place and get to know what's around you. And then finally, for my own mental health, I love to garden. And so a gift that I offer to anyone in the audience, right now I'm living in a condo, so I don't have access to my own garden area, but even the process of purchasing an organic kabocha squash and then preserving the seeds and restarting the seeds in my kitchen and then transplanting it into little pots that can't go in the ground necessarily, but I can share it with my community, right? And so whatever it is, whatever your connection is, I invite you to set an intention within yourself to develop a deeper relationship with the earth.
I just have called Outlive. It's by Dr. Attia, Peter Attia. And he talks about a new, medicine 3.0. And basically it moves from what we're doing right now, 2.0, which is addressing health conditions at the when it's already clinically important to do so, to moving into a kind of medicine or treatment that addresses things more preventively, also considers the uniqueness of the individual, and it also considers the whole, right? Everything holistically. And it's a really interesting book that helps you to see where our field, mental health, could go in the future, more preventive, and thinking about how can we make it sustainable for us to do, because we don't want our people to get into that red range of clinical mental health conditions, but we'd like to address it earlier on. And ecotherapy is one of those ways that I think we could do that.
So the fact that this topic was offered as a CE at our convention is a statement. It's a positive step forward. The that you could have prioritized at 9:45 just to come here today. It represents, especially the number of people here, I think it represents the need and the urgency and the interest, right? And so I did leave a little notebook in the back. I would love to stay in touch with you. I am from Hawaii, but I just returned home after my doctoral training. And, Dr. Lianne and I have gotten so excited to get connected, and we want to get connected with you all here today. And so we know we didn't open it up to be as interactive as we really genuinely want to be as people, but we wanted to give you this information. So just please see us as providers and as researchers that want to continue to move the field of ecotherapy in Hawaii forward. So now we do invite you, if you have any questions. I know time is really limited. Maybe we're already at the end, but I don't know if there is time, but if there is, we welcome any engagement. Also recognizing that virtual participants. I'm so grateful to each of you who are here as well. Yeah, so we do have a reference section in our PowerPoint. I highlighted just like a couple of the main dissertations and literature that I focused on really in ecotherapy. Lisa, if you could go back 2 slides. Okay, yeah, so it's on the slide back, and you can take a little picture and yep, questions. I see one, and then yep.
I have a comment just to say thank you very much for bringing this forward in terms of environment and relationship. So as a Hawai'i, the pilina is relationship. So the oli that was offered at the beginning of the conference spoke specifically to that. And so thank you so much for providing these resources and opportunities for people to really connect, because from a Hawai'i perspective, what was done this morning, wow, for those of you who are hikers or nature buffs who go out when it's dark to see the first crack of light, that the first 4 lines of that oli was describing to very specific tones, colors, sensations. And so this is a very powerful step, I think, in the direction of helping people who have no clue really in terms of a Hawaiian Hawaii experience. This is such awesome resources. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and that thank yous to, oh yeah, one more.
So I just had a question about like the insurance companies not supporting ecotherapy, and is it because it's just a setting change? Like, are you still having the same therapeutic conversations that you would be having in a clinical room? Are you still doing
Absolutely.
CBT?
So we still have a treatment plan. We have a diagnosis. We're clinical psychologists that are treating patients.
Yeah.
That said, there's also that wellness continuum. So
As part of best practice, right? If you think of it from an insurance company, you want to know that what the conditions that you're treating are going to be supported, evidence-based. And yeah, I guess you're going to have to think about ecotherapy as an evidence-based practice for the kind of client that you have. That's what insurance companies would look at. Are you following evidence-based? And right now that is not established. You can't say that for, well, you can say because there is literature
strongly
on it.
enough established. And that's not
Right.
because the relationship doesn't exist. It's because we need each of you to dive into the research and contribute more research in this area. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's an area that we need more research. So that if you get to the future directions in my dissertation, I talk about that. We need the next person to take this on. We need us collectively to take this on. We need to get onto insurance panels and advocate for it, show the literature, show my dissertation, bring these conversations up. ABA wasn't insured, covered too many years ago, right? And now we've got so many ABA providers, right? And so we really are looking at the long run. So we appreciate your question because you're trying to connect us from where we are to where we're going, which is accessibility and insurability makes treatment accessible to all. Right now, not being insured is only making it accessible to people who can pay out of pocket or to providers who can offer their treatment pro bono.
I'm just wondering, is it in the way that we present ecotherapy to insurance companies? Because what if we said in our progress notes, I was doing regular therapy that we just happened to do outside?
Yeah. So if you read my dissertation, there's a whole topic just on insurance coverage.
Oh.
And yeah, some people will just tell insurance, well, I started in the office, then I happened to go outside, but I ended in the office. So they consider that an indoor treatment. And so it's like, there's these workarounds, but why do we have to make workarounds, right? Why can't it just be acknowledged? And this dissertation was published right in like mid-COVID, right? And so, yeah, I'm also, yeah.
I was just wondering if My bias is that we live in silos, and I'm so happy that there's a psychology and a social work thing that's going together, because even those silos get separated, but there's a long history in this, in play therapy, in adventure therapy, in, you know, that some and thank you for your dissertation, but is there any kind of group that is trying to bring all of this together?
Start it. I'll join.
Yeah.
Right? It's like whatever questions you wish you could have
Yeah,
answered,
yeah.
let's continue the conversation. There's going to be an amazing panel right after this about working with families that are court involved. So nice to see you, Dr. Coffee. Just everybody who showed up here today, if you don't mind to write your name in that welcome list, I'll really do my best to stay in touch, and whoever's motivated could start a group and we could have more meetups around this topic as providers. So thank you again for your time.